we're good.
Okay. Welcome back, or welcome, if this is the first video that you are viewing. Today we are again in the Schwobo studio at Columbus State University, and we are going to shape some cane. So in the previous videos we learned how to split and check diameter and guillotine, and then we also gouged some cane. So today our job is to get this cane shaped. I have to admit, shaping is my least favorite part of the entire reed making process. I don't know why that is. I've been doing it long enough that it should be fine, but I just still, if I could do anything else, I would do it and I would not shape. But I need to make reeds, so I have to shape cane. So our gouged cane from the other day has been soaking here in this water for about 30 minutes. And so you can see some of the pieces are starting to sink. So that's a good indication that it is ready for us to work with. So again, I have my towel on my lap here. So I'm going to take my first piece of cane out of the water. Actually, I'm going to mention just one brief little detail because you weren't here when we put the cane in the water. I usually like to put my cane in the water shiny bark side down. I actually can't remember why that is. That's something I learned from Dr. Dan Ross, who makes the Ross gouging machines, who is incredibly knowledgeable about all things gouging and reed making. And what I do is I'll put the piece of cane in, and then I'll actually submerge it and then kind of let it float on top. And it's something about how the piece of cane absorbs water or something like that. So just a little side note there. But so I'll pull that guy back out and throw on my glasses here. So on my table I have got a sharpening stone, I've got my pencil, I've got a ruler, I have my razor blade, I've got my shaper handle, and I've got my shaper tip. And I'm going to take my piece of cane and I'm just going to measure its length, and then I'm going to divide that by 2 and just draw a line for my center of the piece of cane. Actually, what I don't have, excuse me, I need just a knife to, what is this guy? Fold my piece of cane in half. So I've drawn a line. Some people use an easel, which is totally fine, and they'll either draw a line or lightly score the middle of the piece of cane. That is fine too, but I've just gotten used to doing my pencil, and then, I don't know if we can see this here on this, I just line the pencil up with the edge of the blade of the knife. Notice that my thumb here holding onto the knife has that piece of cane pretty close to the line, and when I go to fold it over, I'm going to hold it very close to the line as well until it just gives a little bit, and then I'm going to take the knife away and then continue to fold it over my finger. So everything that I do with the folded piece of cane, I hold at the fold. I don't want to hold it down here because sometimes that will get the fold to sort of splay open, and I hate pieces of cane like that. It drives me crazy. It makes it really hard to scrape the blank. So I do everything as close to that pencil line, and once it's folded, close to the fold as I possibly can. So I'm going to set this aside for just a second because I need to get my shaper tip in through my shaper handle. So there are a lot of different styles of shaper handles. This is the one we happen to have in the Schwobo studio, which has, the 2 little arms, tightness managed by a screw, and then this little handy screw for tightening the shaper tip in, which I really like a lot of. I think the one that I have at home, it's Allen wrench controls getting the tip in and out. That's a little less convenient, so I really like the handles that have this little wheel to do that for you. So I've inserted the tip into the handle, and right now I'm looking to make sure I've got it in straight. So you want to make sure that you're perfectly straight across, you're not angled at all, and I think we have successfully done that. So it's pretty rare that your piece of folded cane is going to fit perfectly over the ears of your shaper tip. And if you're curious, we're using a Gilbert -1 here. We've got several tips in the studio, but Gilbert -1 is one of my favorites. So it doesn't fit over the tip, but it's not going to fit in the ears, so we actually need to sort of shave the very top just a little bit. I don't know if we're going to be able to see that over here. So I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 millimeters down from the fold. I'm just going to take my knife and very lightly kind of pull it forward and take just a grain or two strip off at a time until it kind of makes a little bit of a divot. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. It's better to do less because you can always come back and do more, but if you do too much, you can't put the cane back on. I remember one of the very first times that a teacher told me to take the ear off my reed. I had never done it before, I didn't know, and I went, and I like took half of the tip off, so lesson learned. You can always come back, but hey, that's pretty good. So the piece is fitting nicely in between the two ears. If you do too much, it's gonna float around and you're not gonna get the exact shape that you've got on here, and you paid a lot of money for the shape, so you might as well take advantage of it. And I'm just actually using my lamp here to make sure that piece of cane really is centered. So I'm looking from side to side to make sure it closes evenly, and I'm also kind of using the backlight so I can see where that shaper tip is. And we look pretty good here. So I'm going to tighten that down. Now I'm going to move my knife out of the way. I'm going to open up my razor blade. When I shape cane, I usually sit and I'll shape up 5 or 6 pieces, and then I'll tie the same 5 or 6 pieces. And so that's just my standard sort of batch. So we actually have 5 pieces in the water today. And so I'll use a new razor blade for each batch. So one razor blade will get me through those 5 or 6 pieces, but you'll notice that I'm gonna lightly sharpen it in between. So the way that I shape, I personally like to use the table to my advantage. So I like to get that shaper tip kind of flush on the table, so all the points of contact that I can. And then what I'm going to do is start to take some really small passes. I don't want to sort of dig in and try to get the whole strip of cane off at once, because what I found is when I do that, it ends up taking too much cane, and I end up going like underneath the actual shaper tip, which is going to make my reed super leaky. So I'm just going to start by taking a couple of small little strips. I'm trying to think about keeping the razor blade parallel to the tabletop. I don't want to dip too much to either side, because that's going to cause little divots, and it's going to cause your reeds to leak when you try to tie them up. And a couple more passes here. It feels pretty good. I'm going to swap over to the other side. You've probably noticed that each of these segments I've had my lamp on. Good light is very important when you're making reeds, as is a sharp knife. So I'm going to just take a couple more little passes here. So you basically want to keep taking passes until your piece of cane is nice and smooth and flush with the edges of the shaper tip. Now I'm going to do something bad on this one so I can just show you how easy it is to sort of mess up a piece of cane. So if I actually have too much angle down and I do this, what happens is that actually I can see now the edge of that shaper tip above the piece of cane. So when I try to tie that piece, I'm going to make a little mark on this one so I know I'm not going to bother trying to tie it. It's going to sort of have a big hole in that area that I came down too far. So one reason to keep that razor blade as parallel to the tabletop as you can. So just to show you my process, even though I'm going to toss this piece of cane, once I do this, I actually take the ears off at this stage of the game. Some people don't take the ears off until they actually tie the reed, and just so you know what I'm talking about. So the little ears are where that piece of cane was sitting in that shaper tip. Yep. So kind of like I took some of the edges of the top off, I just sort of grab a little green and clean that ear off. But again, I don't want to scoop in because then I'm going to cause all sorts of leaks. So that's what I do at this stage of the game. And again, that's just my personal preference, but I messed that one up in my shaping, so I'm going to toss that one. So let me show you another piece or two. So I'm going to a new piece. So what I like to do is just very lightly, very flat, to just sort of run the razor blade back and forth a couple of times. That's just keeping it nice and sharp. I'm going to take this piece out of the water, wipe it off on my towel, find the center, make a pencil line. And I'm going to fold it over, keeping everything really close to that fold, and then continue folding it over my finger. And I know it's not going to fit in that shaper tip, so I'm just going to take a little bit off the top where the ears will be. Let's see how we're doing. Nope, not quite enough. One more, we're close. So you want to try to do this evenly from side to side too. You don't want to be too far in on one side, because then you'll end up shaping a piece of cane not really in the center of the cane. So I'm going to bring the arms up, start to close that down, and then play this little game of get the piece of cane as centered as you can. It's looking pretty good. Alright, so I'm going to close that down, and again, try to keep that razor blade nice and parallel. What kind of razor blades are these, Thomas?
Thing from Home Depot.
They're like very sharp. They're nice. We'll have a list of recommended equipment at the end of all the videos, so you can know what razor blades I like to use, although these are kind of nice. I'm going to flip over, get this side. Good. And I just kind of double check that everything is nice and smooth and clean, and sort of just look and make sure I didn't do anything bad. It actually looks pretty good. I'm gonna let that guy come off, and then again, just this is what I do, but I like to get the ears off. I find it helps me to know if my reed is sealing better when I tie, so that's why I like to do it here. Alright, so I'm going to set that guy aside for just a second. Let me get another piece going here. So if I put in 5 or 6 pieces of cane each time I sit, so normally on Sundays, this is what I do. I put in 5 or 6 pieces of cane and then shape and tie, and so I have my blanks for the week. If I put 6 pieces in, it's pretty rare that I will get 6 really good blanks out of it, especially with my shaping track record. So if I get 4 or 5 good blanks out of those 5 or 6 pieces, I'm pretty happy with that. Because we want everything to be as good as possible. Like I've mentioned in previous videos, we are our own quality control. So, you know, if you shape poorly, then you're not going to be able to tie reeds that seal. And what's the point of trying to scrape reeds that don't seal? So you just want to take good care with each step of the process since you are doing it. If you are buying cane processed, then you hope that you're buying from a reputable source and they're doing a good job with all of these steps. But once you get to a certain point, or you're in school and your studio has all this equipment, it saves you a lot of money, but it also can ensure that everything that you have is of the best quality. And if it's not, then it's your fault. So it really does save you a lot of headache in the long run to have high quality control in your cane processing. Right, Thomas?
Yep.
He's paid to agree with me, so he has to. Okay, good. So we are sort of at the end of our shaping. I've got these couple of pieces left to go. So I'm going to take the ears off of this piece, and then we're going to wrap it up for today, and we're going to move on in the next segment to our tying. Tying and just a little bit of scraping to set the reed aside. So Hope this was helpful for your shaping, and we'll see you back in the next segment for tying up our reeds. See you then.